Hello and welcome to your new beginning. I'm Erica Latrice, and let me tell y'all today's message. My prayer is that it encourages exactly who it's intended for. This is for any of you who have been feeling like you simply don't fit in. You may have goals, you may have dreams, visions, and when you think about it and when you talk about it, it's not looking like anything else that other people are doing. I'm telling you, I pray that this message encourages you today. I was sharing this with a friend, and I just knew I was like, no, this isn't just for you, girl. I'm gonna have to do a video about this just to encourage some other people who I know may be struggling with this or maybe dealing with this feeling of not quite fitting in. So if you want to read along with me, you can go to 1 Samuel chapter 16. That's where I'm reading from. I promise to you, if this message is for you, this is about to be something that just shifts the atmosphere in your life today because it's time for you to start stepping out. And I say this so much, but it's so true. The reason you don't fit in is because you were called, you were meant to stand out. And usually you're going to stand out in an arena that other people aren't even called to. And that's why they can't get on board. But I don't want to get too far into the message before it starts. But again, I'm Erica Latrice. My purpose is helping you to live yours. And if you want to read along, again, go to 1 Samuel 16. I'll be right back to give you just a second to find that. All right, so welcome back. So we're at a place where Samuel the prophet, God has sent him to find who's going to eventually replace Saul as king because they wanted a king so bad. And so this is the moment where God has sent Samuel out to find the king. And he's looking at Jesse's sons. I would encourage you again to read this for yourself so you really can get into the story and understand what's going on. But he's looking at all of them and thinking, oh, he would be a good fit or he would be a good fit because they all look the part. They look the role. They're big in stature and they just look like someone that's going to be the king. But instead, David is who God was calling. And so even though David didn't fit the look, this is who God had called. So at verse 7, it says, well, okay, I'm going to actually go back to verse 5. In peace, he replied, I've come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab and said, surely here before the Lord is his anointed. Surely this one has to be who God has chosen. But God spoke to Samuel and he said, do not consider his appearance or height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not see as man does. For man sees the outward appearance, but the Lord sees the heart. He goes on and eventually he ends up anointing David as king. And even in that moment, even though David was being anointed as king, nothing in his life reflected where he was being called to. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So again, you can read the story when you have time, but I want to encourage you because many of you don't fit the stature. You don't look like or sound like or appear to be in the position that God is calling you to. And I've shared this so many times about this marriage season. If you go back and you watch some of my older videos where I talked about being called to marriage, where I talked about he's going to court you, where I talked about these beautiful unions coming together, nothing reflected that truly in my life. And there are many other things and scenarios and instances where I've experienced something very similar. But I want to encourage you today that God is calling you to something specific to you. And even though it does not look like it in the physical, God is not looking at that. So often we can get caught up in who's most intelligent, who's most attractive, who fits this, who fits that. And we use society's or the world's standard to determine how we're going to be able to execute our purpose on this earth, when truly God has a whole other standard for how we're qualified for whatever we're called to. And make no mistake, it's different for all of us. I see this so often where people are called in one area of business or an area of professionalism or an area of ministry or area of this and an area of that. And they decide that they need to set the standard for everyone else. And everybody else wasn't called to that. So many of you are looking at or even listening to people who are creating a standard that God never set. He never said it for you. No one ever told you that you need to be in that arena. No one ever told you that that's what you need to do. And well-meaning people, because it's natural. When we get excited about something, we want everyone else to experience that. But that doesn't mean that that's the only way that you can please God and show up in your purpose. And so for so many of you, there is something that you're called to that does not fit the mold. It does not look like what everyone else is doing. It's unconventional. It's different. It's not what anyone in your family lineage has done before. It's not what any of your siblings have done before. Your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, whomever. You're the person that's breaking the mold. And when I think back again to that example of David, he didn't look like it. They were like, oh, here it is. Samuel is a whole prophet. And he was like, oh, he's the one. This is the son. Thank you, Jesse. Like, he's the one that's going to be king. And God's like, no, I didn't call him. And so some of you are looking at other people where it looks like they're getting along further. They're going faster. You're seeing people get married. You're seeing people have babies. You're seeing people get increased, move into homes. You're seeing people get elevated in ministry. You're seeing certain people, their ministry is growing. And you're thinking, because of that, they're qualified and somehow you're not. So I want to take you to another story. This one's not in the Bible, but it's a good one that many of you may have read growing up, The Ugly Duckling. And this was the analogy that I was sharing with a friend that just blew me away when I really started thinking about this story. Because the essence of the story, and I have not read it in forever, and I probably need to go back and reread it, but it was basically that this duck did not fit in. This ugly duckling was amongst other ducks. And as the duck was a part of that society, he didn't fit in. So that he was called ugly, or she, or whichever it was. Like I said, I haven't read it in a while, but just simply did not fit in. So eventually we know that if you've read the story, the duck didn't fit in because the duck was actually a swan. And as it grew, it became its true self, and they were able to see the brilliance of this duck. So many of you are surrounded by ducks when you're a swan. And that was the example that came to me. And I'm just like, wow, like it's powerful. Because I would encourage you, look up some of the characteristics of a swan. And even when we think about this mantle of marriage, the swans are monogamous. Like swans usually either for a long time or their lifetime find a single partner. They're monogamous. Swans are graceful. Swans are considered beautiful. Swans have so many powerful characteristics. And that's what many of you, especially, I want to speak to those of you in the area of marriage. I want to encourage you, because so many of you have counted yourself out. You feel like you may not look like, or sound like, or act like, or show up like all of these other people that you're seeing walk into this vision that you've been given, or these other people that you're seeing walk into this purpose or promise that you know God has promised you. You might just be in a sea of ducks. And that's not even like, I'm not trying to be funny or mean, but sometimes when we don't fit in, we can immediately think there's something wrong with us. When truly, when that swan was able to grow and surround itself with other swans, that's literally how swans avoid depression. That was another characteristic of a swan. A swan, when they're not surrounded by other swans, literally can experience depression. And some of you are in a state right now where you're feeling less than, you're feeling down and out, you're feeling even depressed, sad. You just feel like you don't fit in. What's going on? What's wrong with me? There is nothing wrong with you. God is not judging you according to this world and this society's standard. You do not fit in because you were called to stand out. And the way that we understand what we've been called to is plugging into the source. Samuel would have anointed anyone that looked like they was looking like they were supposed to be the king, and he would have been fine with it. But he had to get plugged into the source. It was him hearing from God that caused him to understand, like, okay, I'm wrong. I'm listening to the wrong instructions. I was about to anoint the wrong thing. I was about to pursue the wrong thing. This is where God is calling me. And so if you are finding yourself in this place where you don't fit in, my encouragement to you today, y'all know I say Matthew 6:33 all the time, get plugged into the source. God knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. So whether it's another business venture, whether it is a partnership, whether it is a relationship, whether it is a job position, whether it is a ministry that you're launching, a book that you're writing, how you're going to start praying more consistently, a fast that you're feeling called to, how you should be reading in your word, how you desire to read in your word, how you want to build your faith, your spiritual growth. It does not matter what it may be. When you plug into the source, God has a way of anointing that. And I think it was so amazing too to catch that when Samuel was getting ready to and y'all getting the Erica version, so this is such a good read. I don't know if you're a Bible reader or not, but it's such a good read. It's so encouraging. But Samuel also was telling them to consecrate themselves. Sometimes when we're hearing too much noise, we already don't fit in. And you're hearing any and every one, the news, social media feeds, there's all of these distractions coming in, and you can't be in the proper position to be elevated. And as Samuel knew he was going in to anoint who was being called to this position of king, his direct instruction was to consecrate yourself and look deeper into the term consecration. It essentially means like set yourself apart. Get away from all the distractions. Stop listening to all the noise. Stop talking to any and everyone. Stop letting any and everyone speak into your life. I'm telling you right now, consecrate yourself. Get ready for where God is elevating you to. And make no mistake, it's not a coincidence that you don't fit in. They may not be inviting you to the party. They may not be inviting you on the trips. They may not be inviting you to the meetings or having a seat at the table saved for you. That's fine. Because I promise to you, when David was elevated to the level of king, he wasn't worried about who saw value in him when he was out in the field as a little shepherd boy. He didn't care who saw value in him when he was on the fields battling, helping the war. He didn't care. And now, granted, I wasn't there. I don't know David personally, but I'm telling you, when your elevation comes, there's a lot of things that are coming right now to distract you, to get you off course so you can't grow into and fully function as the swan that you have been called to be. And I just love that. Like when that analogy hit me talking to this friend, I just knew it was for more people than just she and I. So whoever this is for, sis, even bro, because I know some men watch this, but I know I'm called to women. You are a whole swan. And the reason you don't always understand your beauty and your power and your authority is because you've been surrounded by ducks and you're so busy trying to fit in with ducks that you are missing out on your true functionality. You're supposed to be walking with grace. You're sitting around a whole bunch of people that feed on drama. You're supposed to be in monogamous situation, but you're sitting around people who are telling you that it's never going to work, compromise your morals. You're never going to find a man that's going to respect you in that way or hold out because of whatever past mistakes you may have experienced. You're a whole swan, but you're sitting around people who just don't see that value. And because of that, much like the actual characteristics of a swan, you may find yourself feeling frustrated and delayed and less than, and like you are not where you've been called to be. But I'm telling you today, this message, if it is for you, it's going to resonate. You are an entire swan. You are beautiful. You are graceful. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You have been called with a unique purpose. God knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. You can read Jeremiah 1 for that. Understand that what you have been called to is so much greater than the labels that you have accepted up until this point. What you have been called to is so much greater than the things that you've allowed to attach themselves to you. There are ducks who you have allowed to speak into your life. They can't speak into your life because they're not swans. They don't even understand the life of a swan. And when we make, like when we have that understanding, now granted, I'm not like a marine biologist or whatever it would be, one who studies poultry and ducks and geese. And I actually had a debate over what was a geese, what was a duck. So that's really not the purpose of this. If anyone's watching, you about to like correct me on, well, swan is a duck. I don't know if a swan is a duck. But what I do know is that when you have been called to so much more, when you have been called to newer heights, when you have been called to a place that does not look like where everyone else has been called, there will be days of what feels like loneliness. There will be moments of what feels like isolation. But usually when you find yourself in that place of isolation, it's usually God calling you into a season of consecration for, I'm going to keep with the Asians, for your elevation. If you find yourself in isolation, oftentimes it's God calling you to consecration so that you can walk in and experience your elevation. Y'all, I'm telling you right now, I feel like this is urgent. I don't even know if y'all just heard the sirens, but even that, it's urgent for some of you to understand that the season of playing small, the season of judging yourself and comparing yourself to others, that season is over. You're not going to be able to thrive. You're not going to be able to elevate. You're not going to be able to fully function in who God has called you to be if you're stuck comparing yourself and looking to the left and looking to the right and worried about how other people see you and do you fit in and did they call you? Did they include you? Are they following you? Are they supporting you? This is not the season for that. We don't have time for that. And I want to use or just encourage you with this too. When we're thinking about being in that place of being different than everyone else, so often we can find ourselves trying to convince other people like that we should fit in, or convince other people that it's worthy, or it's this or it's that. You don't, I'm telling you, you don't have time for that right now. If you have marching orders, if you have clarity of what lights you up, clarity of the vision that God has given you, clarity around your purpose, and that clarity comes with being plugged into the source, most high God. Like, that is the clarity, that's where it comes from. And that is what I truly believe. And Samuel, again, was an example of that, because if he wouldn't have been plugged in, he would have anointed any old body to be the king. And while you're trying to fit in, like, imagine if David would have been in that position, and he's looking at his brothers and he's looking at all these other people and he's thinking, I want to be like them. Some of us are looking at people that you are about to be elevated over. You're going to be able to help these people, but you can't get to that place because you're so busy trying to be like them. You're so busy trying to emulate and imitate and be like other people and do what they're doing and step away from where God has called you. And because you're doing that, you're not even going to be able to help them to the extent and the level that you've been called to help them. There's another example of that with Joseph. Just thinking of David and Joseph, their siblings looked like, sounded like, were in position to receive more. Joseph was straight up thrown into a pit, went to prison. He went through all these things. And had he taken his eyes off of his source, had he taken his eyes off of God and been in a season where many of us go through trying to compare and be someone that we're not and be like people that we're not, he would not have been able to elevate and save his entire family and lineage. He wouldn't have been able to, because he would have been so busy. This is Joseph that I'm speaking of, would have been so busy trying to fit in and do what they were doing that he would not have been where he needed to be the day that he was elevated to second in command over an entire kingdom. And so many of you have that at stake. And that is why. That's why you don't fit in. That's why you may find that you don't have 50,000 friends like everyone else. You're not getting an invitation every second. But when God opens a door for that, some of those things are even going to come back around. There was a time, speaking of Joseph, when it came back around, the brothers that had closed the door on him, the people that he wasn't able to function with in his season of consecration, they came back around and his family was able to be reunited and ignited. And that's literally what's at stake for so many of you that are watching. If you feel me, y'all, like, somebody, if you can resonate with this, comment, let me know, share this video with someone else. If you know someone that is your swan, they are a fellow swan with you, share this with another swan, because it's in those divine connections, it's in those relationships, that's where the fire can ignite. David, for example, had Jonathan. Many times you're going to see that there are people in your life that when you get together, you just ignite. But as long as you're trying to swim with the ducks and hang out with the ducks, you're never going to be able to get connected to the swans that are going to change your life. It's going to change your life. So, y'all, that is the message for today. I feel like these messages been getting a little longer, which I'm fine with, because I know that whoever is for this will encourage you and it's going to be a game changer for you. And I'm telling you this from my experience. When I have been feeling led to share these messages, even over the past year, I'm seeing the fruit show up in my own life personally. I'm seeing testimonies, and I know that God is calling us higher. He's calling you higher, and there's no coincidence when you are coming across moments and messages like this. Just for what I know I've been called to do is just to encourage. Sometimes, strategy is amazing, y'all. I call myself a strategist all day long, where I love to have checklists and to-do lists and, what do I need to be doing? Sometimes we just need to be encouraged. Sometimes we just need to hear that we are not on the wrong path, or just have that confirmation. And I believe, that's what this is for. These daily messages or encouraging messages, to just encourage you to stay the course. Do not give up. Do not look to the left. Do not look to the right. You are an entire swan, and you have been called to so much more. And you may have spent years, some of you even decades, not fitting in and wondering what was wrong with you. And there's nothing wrong with you. You're just a swan. And so my prayer for every single one of you watching is that you start getting connected with other swans, that you start getting surrounded by people who are going to build you up, who are going to sharpen you, and you're going to sharpen them. And you're going to understand in that moment why you did not fit in. You're going to understand in that moment why you couldn't connect with just any and everyone. And it's going to make sense. And for those of you who are believing for marriage, the promise of marriage, you're standing on it. It is not too late. I don't care what it looks like in the physical. God already explained that to us, speaking to Samuel. We're worried about what it looks like physically. We're worried about people talking all kinds of craziness when it comes to relationships. But that's not how God sees it. And that's not how God aligns us for our purpose and our calling. So again, thank you so much for tuning into today's message. If you have not connected with me across social media, you can do so at Erica Empowers, and that's literally everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever you're on, you can find me at Erica Empowers. And the best way that you can support is literally just by hitting like. If you're watching this, just take a second, hit the like button and drop a comment. If something resonated with you, you never know who else you're going to encourage just by sharing a little snippet of your experience. So put that in the comments. And I do want to say there is a super thanks button that I wasn't even like fully aware of, but thank you to everyone who's been using the super thanks. I'm just blown away. I'm so thankful. So if you want to, no pressure, if you want to do the super thanks, that's another great way to support the channel. And also, if you know that you have been called to share your message and you want to get surrounded by some swans in the area of stepping out and speaking and overcoming and empowering other women, then I would encourage you to be a part of my Amplify Her movement. It is, we have a live event coming up, depending on when you're watching this. You can go to amplifyherlive.com. I also am opening up a few more spaces in my online mentorship group. So if you want to be a part of that, the prices range from as little as $27 per month, where you get access to a live weekly call where you can call in with your questions. You get access to resources, specifically if you know that you've been called in the area of ministry and business and you're looking to structure it, take care of it, and grow it. So if that's you, you can go to amplifyher.net and just click on VIP Loft to sign up. So that's it. That's all I got for you today. Again, I hope it encouraged you. Y'all go out and make today so amazing that people can't help but be encouraged and blessed and lit up just by being connected with you. I pray this bless you, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.